Hey guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Peak Politics, a show where I will be talking all things politics and breaking down current events for you every 2 weeks. Now, I hope you're all feeling good. As you can see, the sun is shining. It's shining on me right now. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling rejuvenated. I hope you guys are feeling good and ready to learn some stuff. So, if you don't already know, the show is broken up into 3 segments, right? Number 1 is basic info. Number 2 is peak current events. And number 3 is a Q&A section where I answer any questions you guys may have. Are you ready to get the show started? Let's go. Alright, so to kick off the show, we'll be covering some basic politics, and the 3 questions I'm going to be answering in today's episode are: how do the right wing and left wing differ in the UK? What is democracy? And lastly, what is first past the post, and how exactly does it work? So there might be a lot of terms in there that you're thinking, what the hell is that? But it's alright guys, I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to get there, alright? Okay, so firstly, let's point out the difference between the left wing and the right wing. When we talk about the left wing and the right wing, we're referring to political parties, right? So remember in the last episode, I spoke about like gangs of friends, those groups who like share beliefs, share views, right? Those guys, they're the ones who go either left or right. In the UK, a political party will go in either direction, right? Either left or right. And whichever direction they choose to go in, their beliefs and practices as a party, so the things they do will also follow in that direction, and also the things they believe. Now, to look more specifically at what left wing and right wing means, the left is quite known for being the more liberated party, the more free party. They're quite progressive in their views on things like same-sex marriage or abortion, etc., and immigration. Whereas the right wing is much more conservative in its approach, and you could say traditionalist, right? Because their views are quite traditional when it comes to like same-sex marriage or abortion and immigration, etc. So to put it simply, the left wing represents a liberal approach, a more free approach, whereas the right wing represents a more conservative and traditional approach. Hence why the Labour Party is considered a left-wing party and the Conservative Party is considered a right-wing party. Now, swiftly moving on to question 2, what is a democracy? Now, the reason this question is important is because the UK as a country considers itself a democracy, right? So it's important we actually know what that means. Now, the word democracy comes from a Greek word which essentially just translates to power to the people, meaning that the people should be the ones making decisions, running the country together as a community, right? In a democratic way. That's what a democracy means. Running things together collectively, making decisions, be like, yo, yeah, let's do this. I think we should do this. Voting on things together, the majority. That's how it should work, right? Just remember that. Now, back in the day, of course, that's essentially how things were run. You had like a little village of people, and you would all, say someone committed a crime, you would all vote on what should happen to that person. Now, of course, as time has gone on and populations have grown and countries have expanded and broken up, that can no longer be how a democracy is run, because it would just be impossible to do. So democracies have developed. And that is why we have what is known as essentially a democratic parliament. We spoke about what parliament is in the last episode. And a democratic parliament essentially means that we as a people democratically are able to decide, are able to like make the decision on who goes into parliament, and then they run things as a democracy in parliament to make decisions for us, because obviously not all of us can barge into parliament and be like, yeah, do this, do that, no, that. Do you get it? But I'm going to explain it a bit better, so if you don't worry. Now, the way a democracy is supposed to work in the UK, right, is we the people are essentially put our trust in our local MPs, members of parliament, which we spoke about in the last episode, and they're supposed to be our voice in parliament, right? And parliament is where the real democracy is supposed to happen. Now, the reason I'm doing air quotes is because 60% of Brits complain that they cannot freely say what they think, and another 34% feel as though they have absolutely no say in how things are run in this country. So, looking at those statistics, and also the fact that so many things get put through parliament that we, I think, altogether can say, no, we wouldn't agree with that get put through parliament, and all the MPs in there apparently decide that, yeah, it should be a law, and then it becomes a law, and it's not something we ever wanted as a community, as a people. Do you know what I mean? So I think based on that altogether, it's pretty safe to say that as much as we like to preach that we are a democracy, we don't actually put that into practice as a country. And I think that is largely due to our voting system, that basically how voting works in this country, right? We don't practice what we preach. And that brings me on to our next question. First past the post. What is first past the post, and exactly how does it work? Now, first past the post is the name of our voting system. So basically, the way voting works in this country, or how the structure of the voting in this country, is called first past the post. So let's look a little bit more at exactly how that works, because it can be a bit complicated, and honestly it took me ages to wrap my head around it as well. So okay, now bear with me on this one, guys, because explaining first past the post is a bit of a sticky one, right? So on the first past the post, it's a mouthful, isn't it? Even though every person who's allowed to vote in the country, so everyone who's, they've said, you can vote, go to your local polling station and vote. Every person that's allowed to vote in this country counts as a singular vote, right? But many people, believe me included, that because of this voting system, the way it works, not every vote actually counts. And it sucks, okay? And that is because the first past the post is broken up into two steps, basically. The first being is when we actually go down to your polling station, your voting spot, right? When we go down there, when we vote in constituencies. And a constituency is basically like your borough, your local area, right? So we vote per area. And when we go down to the station, you tick off a name of a local MP for that area. And each one of those MPs will belong to a political party, okay? So you will have a Labour person on there, a Tory person on there, and a Liberal Democrat and whoever else. You go, you tick them off, okay? Cool, got that part. And essentially, the person with the most votes will win that constituency. Yes? Yes. So that's all good and well, very fair. Yes, we voted, it's picked a person. They've now taken over that area because it was the majority that voted for them. Got it, cool. Now this is where things get sticky, right? So each constituency is a seat in parliament, okay? And in order to become the government, become the winning party of an election, you need to have the most seats in parliament. So the more constituencies you have, the more seats you have. Got it? But the problem with that is you could have somewhere like London, right? London has a huge population, but say you break it up into a few boroughs. And you've now got a Labour MP who's won over most of the votes, like in terms of actual people, he's won over the majority of the votes. But because a Tory MP has actually got less votes than him, but more constituencies, like more areas, he's now gonna be the winner. Does that make sense? It's very complicated, but that is why a lot of people feel as though their vote doesn't actually count, because we're not actually basing the voting on who's gotten the most individual votes. So this basically means that although a party may have the most individual votes, that won't matter if another party has more constituencies. I hope that makes sense. I know this might be one of those ones where you guys will have a lot of questions, because honestly, even me trying to explain it right now, I was like, am I making sense? Am I making sense? I think it did make sense, though. It was one of those ones that took a while for me to understand. But it's basically, to put it simply, our voting system is not fair. Okay? That's a personal opinion of mine. Do not go around stating that as fact. But you know. But yeah, many people feel as though because of this voting system, many people feel as though because of the first past the post system, their vote gets wasted, and it also reinforces it, like it really puts on a mount the fact that this country is a two-party system. But that is something I will explain more in the next episode, right? Enough about first past the post. If you have any questions about it, drop them in the comments and I will answer them in the next episode's Q&A. Now we're on to peak politics of the episode, and this episode we're going to be talking about the extreme attack on women's rights in Afghanistan, right? So the Taliban retook Afghanistan back in, I believe it was like summer of 2021, and since then they have absolutely restricted women's, like women basically have no rights. They're not allowed to do fuck all in Afghanistan, right? The Taliban came and said, nope, you can't do, and I'm just going to give you a list of some of the things that they're not allowed to, right? Under Taliban rule, women aren't allowed to go to secondary school or uni, go to the park, play sport, go to the gym, appear on TV, work for an NGO. The list doesn't end there, by the way. It's crazy. Then they're not even allowed to go to the doctor, hospital, or any healthcare facility, or travel over 72 kilometers without a man escorting them to do it. They can't go to, like, imagine not being able to go to your local GP without a man taking you there. You can't go to the park. Imagine you just don't have male friends, you don't have a boyfriend, you don't have any like male family members, you can't go to the park ever. That is crazy, and the rest of the world just doesn't seem to know or care. In the 21st century, women's rights should be going forwards and not backwards. This is horrendous. Like, now on to the final segment of the show, which is the Q&A segment. We're going to do the Q&As from last week's episode. Unfortunately, there didn't seem to be that many questions. That means one of two things. Either I did a really good job explaining everything, or you guys were just not engaged enough, okay? And no one actually wanted to ask. There were a few questions from one user, but they were all quite opinion related. They weren't really opportunities for me to further educate you guys or to teach you guys more stuff about politics or like things that were going on or like further explain my points. It was kind of more about my views on things, and I don't really want the show to be about that, because I want to stay as neutral as possible, even though, you know, I'm going to make my comments here and there. But I don't want to be... You can find my opinion on my TikTok or my Instagram if you really want it, do you know what I mean? But I did pick out one question that I decided I was going to answer for the purpose of the episode. So, the question was whether or not I think the UK should get involved in other countries' business. Like I said, this is more of an opinion-based question, but I'm still going to answer it just very briefly. Now, I feel like, personally, if the UK is going to, or even not just the UK, but Western nations, so like Europe and stuff, and also America, if we're going to get involved in other countries' business when it's financially beneficial, like when it works out for us because, oh yeah, it's good for us, we get something out of it, then I feel like we should also be getting involved where in situations where people's lives are at risk, or like countries are like for example what's going on in Afghanistan, or like last episode we spoke about what's going on in Iraq. I feel like if you're going to get involved, because they would have got involved when it was financially beneficial for them, when the UK got involved in the situations in Afghanistan before because it was somewhat beneficial for them, and also because they were like trying to be a suck up to other countries. That's when they wanted to get involved. But now that the country actually needs their help, they're nowhere to be seen. Do you know what I mean? And I also feel like the UK or the West needs to stop being pick and choosy about who they decide to help. For example, when Ukraine was attacked by Russia, within a matter of days, right, we sent over help. We got the refugees over here, no issues, got them set up. Everything was great. Places like Yemen, Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and other places in the Middle East have been war-ridden for years, and it's taken us years to help them. But we actually know it's not even taking us years to help them. We're doing nothing to help them. Matter of fact, we're actually supplying the middle, like places like Afghanistan with, or Saudi Arabia with weapons that they can then use on these countries and further just cause people harm and displace them from their homes. While we're on this question, I'm also going to take the time out to point out the fact that the UK likes to be very pick and choosy, and it likes to select who it wants to help, especially in times of war, or like when countries are facing like war, right? So for example, when Russia attacked Ukraine, we were there in an instant. In a matter of days, we were like, yeah, everyone come over here, here, take this, we've got money for you, we've got this for you. But then you've got places like Afghanistan, Syria, Palestine, Yemen, that we just leave to fend for themselves. And it's like, I feel like we shouldn't be picking and choosing, especially when these people have been going through it for years. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're at their wits' end. I don't think, like, it's a crisis, okay? they need our help and we're doing nothing. Why? Probably because the country's racist, but that's a topic for another day, right? Topic for another day. And it's also probably more financially beneficial for us to let the wars go on. Again, a topic for another day. Now, because this was an opinion-based question, I don't want to go too deep into it. So I'm going to leave. Now, because this was an opinion-based question, I don't want to dwell too into it. So I'm going to leave you guys with all that was said. So I hope you guys learned something from this and at least took away one piece of new information, okay? And if you did, then make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget, if anything in this video confused you or there's something you want me to elaborate on a little bit, make sure to drop your question down below in the comment section and I will answer it in the next episode's Q&A. Love you guys. See you next time.